Trap. Yeah, I was going to ask Alyssa to record. Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, I can go back again. So financial aid is where we need a actual cost of attendance to see what the maximum amounts of aid the student would actually need for the academic year. So this cost of attendance is where it includes tuition, housing, housing depending on whether or not the student is living with their parents, living on campus, or living off campus. Yeah, so this is like the estimated amount that is needed for the academic year for the student to attend. So this is the maximum amount that we can actually package students or certify or originate loans up to that total cost of attendance. Then to get financial aid, you need to fill out the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. So they would go to studentaid.gov to complete the FAFSA application. They would input their parents' information, mainly use a email address that I guess in a sense that they'll remember. So once the student is completed with their portion, then the FAFSA will actually go ahead and email the parent to complete their side of the FAFSA application. So with the new FAFSA applications, it's pretty, I guess, way easier than what it was before. Before, you needed to have your tax information right next to you as you're filling out the FAFSA application. Now, what you need to do is just give consent so that the information can be pulled from the IRS. And also another change, maybe in the last 5 years or so, is that they're using the prior year tax information for the FAFSA application. So what that means is that if you're filling out the 2026, 2027 FAFSA application, then it's pulling from the 2024 IRS tax information. So what had happened before was that people wouldn't complete their FAFSA application because they didn't file their taxes yet. So with the prior year, then that in itself helps people to fill out the FAFSA application since it's using prior year's tax information and whatnot. And then for our FAFSA deadline, it's always February 1st. So what this deadline means is that you want to complete your FAFSA application by February 1st. But if you can do it earlier, it's way better in the sense that the FAFSA application opens on October 1st. So with that, you want to try and complete it as soon as possible because there are certain financial aid that we have limited amounts that we can actually package the students with. So once we reach that maximum amount, we don't package any more of that aid to the students next in line. So the only way that they could potentially get it is that if, say, a student decides that they're not going to attend or a student doesn't need a certain type of aid, then that aid goes back into the pot, and whoever is next in line will get their financial aid package revised to include that aid and whatnot. So very important to do your FAFSA application as soon as possible, and it's always going to be October 1st. So also part of financial aid are loans. So there's subsidized, unsubsidized loans for the student. Subsidized is the one that the government pays the interest while the student's enrolled half-time or greater. And then the unsubsidized, you have the option to pay the interest, otherwise the interest accrues with the loans. Then there's the Parent Plus loan. So moving forward for the 2026-2027 academic year, because of the big beautiful bill, the maximum amount that we can package for a student would be 20,000 for the academic year, and with a maximum of 65,000 for that undergraduate degree. Then there's other like shell loans and private student loans. So with that Parent Plus loan, the parents need to go to studentaid.gov and apply for that loan. If their credit is good, then they also need to complete a master promissory note for that loan. So that's where from the next academic year moving forward, that's where if the parent or the student feels like there's more funds needed to help cover the expenses, then that's where the student would need to apply for a private student loan. Private student loan is a loan that's based on the student's credit, whether or not that loan gets approved or denied. So in most cases, incoming freshmen, even sophomores, they may not have any type of credit. So they're going to need somebody as a co-signer to get those loans approved. Then there's also grants. So grants are like the federal Pell Grant, which is based on your SAI number, your student aid index number. So that SAI number is calculated based on the household income from the FAFSA application. So once all the IRS information gets pulled in, then they do a calculation, and that calculation comes up with that SAI number. So that SAI number, if it's really low, then you may qualify for the maximum Pell Grant of 7,395 for the year. So that doesn't mean that you can get that all in one semester. Half of that is for fall and half of that is for spring based on full-time enrollment. So with full-time enrollment, with financial aid, for the most part, what students need to do is when they go to their STAR GPS, the STAR GPS is where they actually enroll in their classes. They need to make sure that a minimum of 12 credits are in plan or towards their degree. So when they log into that STAR GPS, they'll see whether or not the classes are in plan or not. Yeah. So when financial aid disperses, it's going to look at whether or not the student is enrolled in, if they're an undergraduate student, 12 credits or more. And at that time, 10 days prior to the start of the semester is when the earliest that financial aid can get dispersed into a student's account. Yeah, so another type of grant, which is very limited, is the Federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant. This one may be taken away, and that's why slowly the amount has been less and less for each academic year. So this one, as long as you're qualified for the Pell Grant, then you may get it. That's why it's so important to do your FAFSA application as soon as possible. This too is based on need. And so what need is that total cost of attendance I was talking about in the beginning, less your SAI number, that'll create your need budget. That need budget is what certain aids can actually be packaged to your financial aid package and whatnot. So just like that Federal Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant, if we run out of funds, then whoever's next in line wouldn't be able to get it unless if other students prior decide that they're not going to attend or that they don't need that fund. Then the Manoa Opportunity Grant is a grant that the university gives. This too is based on full-time enrollment and only classes at Manoa. Yeah, when I say that is because there are some students that want to take classes at the community college level because say it's maybe a little bit cheaper or whatnot. But for the Manoa Opportunity Grant, when a student does that, then it's only going to be based on their Manoa credits. Scholarships. So scholarships, the STAR scholarship already closed on February 15th. This one is for all Manoa students and everything. It's just one application, and from there you'll find out whether or not you're receiving a scholarship or not through this STAR application. Then there's the UH System Scholarship. This one also passed, was March 1st. Yeah, so this one is with all the campuses. So there's more competition, I guess, for these scholarships because it's not only Manoa students, but it's also everyone else from all the other UH campuses and whatnot. Or if you go to our financial aid website, there is a link. If you look under types of aid, and under types of aid are scholarships. So there are local scholarships and national scholarships. They have the links for all these scholarships at our website. When you have time, you want to go ahead and click on each and every link, see which ones you think you may qualify for. Look at the deadlines for the scholarships. Apply for the scholarships before the deadlines. There may be some that the deadline's already passed, but what I tell students is that go ahead and maybe take a note on the side, and then for the following academic year, just remember to apply for that scholarship before the deadline and everything. Yeah, so these are all private donors. They set their own criteria of what type of students or who they want to give the scholarships to. And usually the deadlines, like I said, is in the beginning of the calendar year so that they have enough time to review the applications and send out letters to those who are going to be recipients of those scholarships. Yeah, so like I was talking before, disbursements for every semester is no sooner than 10 days prior to the start of the semester. So if 10 days prior to the start of the semester, your financial aid has not dispersed to your student account, then something is wrong. And that's where I said that if you're not enrolled in 12 or more credits as an undergraduate student, and of those credits, at least 12 being in plan, then that's one reason that the financial aid won't disperse to your student account. There are other loans that for the subsidized and the unsubsidized, students need to complete an entrance counseling, which explains what the sub loan is and the unsub loan. And also, as an agreement to pay back the loans, they need to complete the master promissory note for those sub and the unsub loans. So that's another reason why maybe aid wasn't dispersing to the student's account 10 days prior to the start of the semester. Yeah, so yeah, like that second one, that classes counting towards their program of study is the one that whether or not the courses are in plan or not for the classes that they're enrolling in. And if you do receive any types of scholarships or whatnot, please send us a copy of your award letter, or you can also just email us saying that you're getting such and such amount, like, I don't know, like $1,000 for fall and also $1,000 for spring for this following scholarship or whatnot, so that we can go ahead and put that in the resources. And so when you are being packaged or when you're already packaged, we can go ahead and revise your financial aid prior to the start of the semester so that there's no times where we need to go ahead and return back some of the loans. And maybe at that point, some of the loans already dispersed. So the sooner you can tell us, the better off. That way, everything is all ready for the beginning of the semester. Yeah, so these are the old dates. So this is our financial aid website. So on the very bottom of our financial aid website is the link to our virtual front desk. So we're open from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time, excluding holidays. So if you don't have time or you can't come to our office in person, we also have this option of our virtual front desk. And this is our contact information. We're located in the Queen Liliuokalani Center for Student Services, room 112. You can email us at finaid@hawaii.edu. Our financial website is manoa.hawaii.edu/FAS. And we, maybe about a year and a half ago, I guess, we created our Instagram account. So what we do is we'll send out information about upcoming deadlines and whatnot to the students, or if there's any upcoming events happening on our behalf and everything. So, are there any questions? No financial aid
I
questions? Oh, yes.
I was gonna ask the parents in attendance tonight, what grade is your child in? And if you know if they have plans to attend UH Manoa, another college campus, or a community college. If anybody wanted to share, Charlene, would you mind sharing?
Hi, everyone. And thank you so much, Farron, for this helpful information. So I was just typing in the chat too. So I have a daughter and she's in 11th grade. She's definitely interested in UH. We're not sure which campus yet. We're trying to learn more about the programs at the different campuses. Um, but yeah, so I know I've got to do this like this year, right? So October 1st, I put it on my calendar already. Get in, do the FAFSA and look at all of these programs and what the different availability might be.
Oh, great.
Nick?
Thanks, Charlene. And I
Thank
and I
you.
did see that Carrie Kaneakua put in the chat that her daughter is in ninth grade and she's looking at UH Manoa. And then we have the Fletchers, 11th grade and UH Manoa. I Chia Shi, 10th grade. And then K Miken, 10th grade, UH Hilo. So we have a bunch of looking at Manoa. Anyone have any questions for Baron? I also wanted to share that I'm housed in Native Hawaiian Student Services, which is right next door to financial aid in Queen Liliuokalani Center for Student Services. Um, there's also the Kua'ana tuition awards as well, and I will drop the link in the chat. Um, that is a tuition waiver. It's often a partial tuition waiver, which means that funding is applied to your tuition, only tuition. So it's unlike other financial aid where you can also apply it towards like student fees and books. The Kua'ana Award is just for tuition, and the deadline for that is April 1st. So if you're interested in looking at what you could potentially have available next year, it's in there in the chat. You can take a look at what the requirements are for that. Okay.
And then also what you want to do is check with your employer. Sometimes employers will give funding for dependents. There are several companies that like to support higher education and whatnot. Otherwise, if you're part of a credit unions also give out scholarships. Or if your son or daughter knows their major, I would check with the department on campus to see if there's any available fundings or whatnot. Sometimes students may have to be like teachers' assistants, and that's how they can get some of their tuition waiver or whatnot kind of stuff. Yeah. Just other options, I guess, to so that you're not taking out so much loans to help cover. Just remember, you have to do this for a minimum of 4 years. So, right, that's a lot of loans for 4 years, and I don't know, it just unless you have like a 529 plan that you had that was set up how many years ago and whatnot, all those other things are other options to help cover the expenses for their bachelor's degree mostly, I guess. Yeah. And if
There's a
they're going to go get their graduate degree, the big beautiful bill got rid of the graduate plus loans, so it's only the unsubsidized loans. So once again, that's where there's going to be more private student loans that are being taken out um, from the years moving forward, I guess. Yeah.
Mhm. There's a question in the chat. Is there any tuition waiver for UH employees' children who enroll at UH?
I don't think so. I think that's where a union was trying to fight for it, but it never happened. I think your spouses may get, I'm not sure, but don't quote me on that. Yeah. But as far as for children, I think our union always has fought for that, but never got that.
Yeah, some of the other government unions, you may want to check, might have tuition waivers for dependents, but it's not to UH, it's through an online schooling, as far as I know. Um, I've had some family members that have done that for my sister who works for the state in Department of Health. So you may want to check that. But like Baron said, some employers do have scholarships that they offer. So you may want to also check with your employer. And then the Hawaiian Civic Clubs also offer scholarships. Like you can go on their website and look at the different ones. Some of the big ones like Prince Kuhio Hawaiian Civic Club, they offer scholarships and there's no membership requirement. You just need to fill out the application. Yeah.
And just remember when you fill out the scholarships and the FAFSA application, that needs to be completed every single year. So if you're getting any type of scholarships, don't forget, put a reminder for your son or daughter to fill out that application before the deadlines.
There's also another question in the chat. What percentage of University of Hawaii Manoa students receiving financial aid, especially Manoa or UH system scholarships? Any information on the average amount?
Mm, I don't have that information, but like for if you wanted to see if you qualify for any type of um merit scholarships, that's with the admissions office. So depending on the GPA of the high school that your son or daughter attends will determine whether or not they get awarded those scholarships. But those scholarships, I believe you need some kind of, I don't know if it's a 3.2 GPA or higher every single semester or academic year. Yeah, so check with the admissions office to see what type of merit scholarships they're giving out and whatnot. Yeah. But as far as for um any type of scholarships and whatnot, scholarships are mainly from like outside donors, or there's that star scholarship where there are multiple donors within, I guess, that application that give out scholarships and whatnot. Yeah. But as far as for like the Manoa Opportunity Grant, the max is 5,500 or 2,500 per semester. And that too is limited to whatever the allocation that we're given. Yeah. So once again, you want to make sure that the FAFSA application is completed as soon as possible when it's available from October 1st moving forward. Yeah. Um, yeah, just and even like the Pell Grant is yeah, a little bit over $6,000. So maybe about 3,000 per semester. So if you were to get, say, like the Pell Grant and the Manoa Opportunity Grant right there is like 5,500 or whatever. Yeah, as far as for free money and whatnot. Well, and then if you were to be packaged with federal work studies is where the employer only, well, currently the employer only pays 25% and the federal government covers 75%. That may change with the big beautiful bill, but that's kind of a perk for employers to hire students who are packaged with federal work studies. Yeah. But like I said, that is another fund that once we package up to the maximum amount, we don't package any students thereafter. But we do have like a wait list on our financial aid website. So if you think you qualify, or maybe the employer only wants to hire federal work study students, go on the wait list, and if students decline the federal work studies, then the pot replenishes, and then from there, then we revise students' packages based on them being on that federal work studies wait list. So with federal work studies, also it's just like getting a job on campus. You could be in an office doing office work or whatnot, so you get paid on the 5th and the 20th. So every pay period based on the number of hours that you work, you get paid on the 5th and the 20th. So it kind of teaches the student money management, knowing that they're getting a paycheck for such and such amount, and they're gonna have to budget themselves, right? And what they spend that money with, or what for and whatnot. Yeah. So kind of a good thing, because like to have a job on campus, most of the offices are open from say like 9 o'clock to 4 o'clock, and students can work in between, say, their classes if they have a project, or if they have a finals or a test coming up. They go and communicate with their supervisor to let them know, maybe, I can't come in this Wednesday. I'm going to put in some more time to kind of study on so I can do well on my midterm or whatnot, kind of stuff. Yeah. So with the supervisors and whatnot, they're very understanding that education is the priority of the student, versus say if you were to get a job off campus, and then some employers may say, "Oh, Annie, you know what? You're doing such a great job. Why don't you put in like a couple more hours?" And then you end up spending more time at work. And whereas education should be your priority to, complete your degree and get that piece of paper, so that, you have that sense of accomplishment or whatever. So another thing to do is, if the student is ready and willing to get a job on campus, is probably the best thing that they could do. And plus they pay well. I believe starting pay is something like $18 an hour. So yeah, that's the starting pay. And they get a raise after their first year. What better job than to have a on-campus job getting paid that well?
Yes, I have to back what Darren said about that, because having an on-campus job is very, very convenient, as well as it pays well. And you're not doing work like you would if you had an off-campus job, like if you had to work at a grocery store or a fast food place. Like most on-campus jobs are office jobs or student jobs that are working in labs. My freshman year, I worked in a biology lab because that was my major, biology. So they kind of try to match you in something that you're interested in. So it also helps you when you go and put together your resume, to look for, the real job outside, to say that you had some experience in that field already. I did want to share, because we have one person that shared in the chat. She has a daughter who's a sophomore in college. So she did offer some suggestions on alternative places to look for scholarships, credit unions, and banks. I know that Hawaii State Federal Credit Union is running their scholarship right now. Kamehameha Schools, UH Common Scholarship has many different options to apply to. A letter of recommendation is asked for in most scholarships um, for most scholarship applications, just as a heads up. I can also tell you that for Napua no Eao, our scholarship, which we reactivated last year because we do have a fund through UH Foundation specifically for UH scholarships, is going to come out again. So for students who have been in a Napono AL program, they're eligible to apply. And our scholarships are anywhere from $500 to $1,000 per year. And it does require 2 letters of recommendation. So that reaffirms what she did share. And if you ask me, like, how do you know about all these scholarships? If you're on social media, I can tell you that right now, within the past week, I've seen postings for at least 15 different scholarships that are open, that are not connected to the university. Like, it's not a UH scholarship. So it's not going to run through financial aid services to get packaged for you. It's a separate application where you have to see this. And some of them are specific to places like Hawaii Island. Some are specific to graduating seniors. Some require a certain major, a field that you're going into, but many of them are open and general. So anyone can apply. So I would highly suggest that if you're not on social media, specifically, I've seen these all coming through on Instagram, that you get onto there and you like browse. You just look at what's open, and then you'll start to see these scholarships come up. And some of them have later deadlines, but some of them are short deadlines. So you got to get on it right away. So to have all of your documentation ready to go is super helpful. Yeah. Anyone have any other questions, or you have something that you want to share that we can answer for you tonight before we go?
Yeah, I can share even more information. So like Manoa Career Services is where you would actually go and look to find jobs on campus and whatnot. But if say the student doesn't see anything one week, I would continue to look because there are job postings that'll get posted later on based on when the openings happen within the office. And also with Manoa Career Services, if the student is their first time applying for jobs, they have services where they can help students with prepping for interview, or if they need to make like a resume or they want to brush up or have their resume looked at, and they can give feedback and all that other stuff. So there are other options on campus that can help students. And then say if they don't get any type of scholarships, but they do have a job, they're working for somebody on campus, that's another good way to get letters of recommendations for any future scholarships. Yeah. Well, as long as they're good workers, can't just be a letter of recommendation for any, hopefully they're good at what they're doing, and then their supervisor can go ahead and write that letter of recommendation. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm glad you shared that, because I think that's super important that students know that there's someplace they can go within the campus. I am going to drop into the chat the feedback form for you to fill out. It is our way of taking attendance so that we know that you were here tonight. That's how our data people track it. So if you can fill out that feedback form, complete and submit that. Also, I'm going to drop into the chat the link to the WH1 form. We do have a few people that have filled out the WH1 form, but if you haven't yet, please make sure that you fill that out so we can send you your gift cards at the end of the series of workshops. Without that WH1 form, we can't send anything out to you. And that's part of your attendance, is that you get that in return for taking the time to being here with us, or to watching any videos where you weren't on the live. So if you could make sure that you fill that out as well, if you haven't. And if you're not sure if you did, please ask me, or you can always email me and ask me if you did, and I can double check that so that we can make sure that you get those gift cards. Jen, did you have anything else to add?
No, I don't. Yeah, thanks a lot for all the good information, Baron. We learned a lot from you tonight.
We
Yep,
did.
you're
You
welcome.
know, I always love hearing the updates because it changes every year, right? So thank you so much.
Yep, you're welcome.
Okay, well, guess what, folks? You get to go early. But you got a lot of good information to take with you. And as always, we will post the video on the parent website. So you can always go back to check the video if you want to recall something. And then remember to fill out your feedback form. We'll see you next month on April 22nd. And we will be sharing about summer programs coming up that your child may be interested in attending, or even summer programs that are available once they come to UH. Very interesting stuff. So we'll see you next month. Keep dry. I don't know if it's supposed to rain again this weekend, but keep dry and we'll see you folks again.
I think it's supposed to be windy.